Good morning. I've got a question for you. I want you to go back in your mind to when you were 5 years old. I know it's hard for some of us. Go back to when we're 5. And your parents are getting a delivery of a stove or a refrigerator, and it comes in a box. You are 5 and your friends are over. Your parents are all excited about the avocado green refrigerator, and you're all excited about the box. So my question is, for your table conversation for just 15 seconds, what did you do with the box? Go. Okay, so how many forts? Any forts? How many sleds? What did you slide down? Stairs. Who was the crash test dummy you put in for the first time down the stairs? The little brother, your pet? Okay. The reason why I start with the box is because we have a language. Kids have a language of the box. It's very simply, whoops. Come on. It's not a box. It's a fort, a sled. That is to me, that's the best language of creativity. Because HBO, when they launched HBO, they said, it's not TV, it's HBO. The reason they did that, come on, clicker. TV is a finite idea. It's not TV is an infinite idea. So how do we use that? Well, come on, click. It's not a classroom. Go around 2 times. It's not a classroom. It's a go. Start wherever you want. Good, good. That is the language of creativity. It's not something, it is. And what's fascinating about that is kids all love to sing and dance, as we all know. Okay, and they'll show you their moves. But my question is, I'm talking to you right now. How many of us need 3 beers before we'll go out and sing and dance? Okay. How many of us have told the world, come on, clicker, I can't carry a tune? Think about drawing. All kids love to draw, right? They'll show you their drawings. How many of us have told the world, I can't draw a straight line? Anybody? Let you know something. That's what a ruler is for. I'm a cartoonist, and I can't draw a straight line. That's what a ruler is for. So what I want to talk about is, why do we tell the world now that we're not creative? Drawing is the oldest technology out there. It was before speech. And I've made up some numbers here, but they sort of were fun to make up. 90, 90, 90. I saw some research that said 90% of all the new information in the world was created in the last 2 years. 90%, and that's IBM's research, 90% of all that new information is visual. And now here's my made up number. I believe 90% of adults say they can't draw. Is there a problem there? If we are becoming a visual learners, visual sharers, and we say we can't draw? So, come on, clicker. I've got a little exercise for you. I want to go and benchmark you because, see, I've got 3 levels of this session. There's the advanced, the regular, and the remedial. And I don't know which one to give you. So Emily said, I think go advanced, but I gotta prove it. So tell me, what are the 2 words inside of the black box? Yellow and white. Good job. That's using the left analytical side of your brain. What are the colors of the 2 words inside of the black box? Good. You're at 100%. Okay. That was just warm up. Now comes the quiz. This is Dr. Stroop's quiz. It's been out for almost 70 years. And I want you to go and read the words left to right and top down as quickly as you can, and that will be using your left analytical side of your brain. So read the words, and I'll count on my fingers to see how fast you read the words out loud, left to right, top down, get ready, just the words, go. Good job. We got 9 fingers there. Okay. Now the kids are about 13 to 15 fingers. So let's see how you do with the creative side of your brain. So to be in balance, you need to go and read the colors left to right and top down in 9 fingers, because the kids are 13 and 13. Okay? So get ready to read the colors left to right and top down. Go. – 25, 26, 27. Does anybody need a Tylenol? Do you have a headache now? What it is that the analytical side of your brain has gotten so strong. Why? Because it's verbal. The creative side of the brain you have atrophied because you've been telling the world the last 30 years, I can't draw a straight line. Or I can't dance because someone told you dance funny. And so what's fascinating to me is that we don't realize how important visual skills are. Look at that logo. And you're going to go, okay, that's Federal Express, and it's overnight delivery, and everything goes to Memphis, and okay, that's the left side of your brain. The right side of your brain, when it looks at the logo, it doesn't know anything about the words. It tells you those are colors, maybe going from cold to hot, blue to orange, but it sees a symbol in there. What's the symbol inside of there that actually shows movement? Arrow. Does everybody see the arrow? No. Okay. There is the arrow between the E and the X. If you have not seen the arrow before, there is the remedial session after lunch, and I'll do it again. I know some people are still going, what's going on? Between the E and the X, between the E and the X, there is the arrow. It is there on purpose. It was designed that way. Now the reason, did any of you play with a game called the Mousetrap game? Okay. It was created by a cartoonist named Rube Goldberg. And he made a comment. He said, man will always find a complicated means to perform a simple task. And this is why I bring this up, is I grew up next door to Rube Goldberg. And he drew me this cartoon when I was 10 years old. My name is Chick because I was born 2.5 months premature, put in an incubator, and had blonde hair. Chick is not a great name in elementary school, as you can figure out, because the kids called me chicken shit and different things. So I changed my name to my proper name of Charles, and that's why Rube put to Charles Thompson. But he taught me something. One, I asked him, Mr. Goldberg, what's your technique? Because he had just won a Pulitzer Prize. And he had just created the Mousetrap game, which is so cool. And he said, You know, everybody in the world wants to go from A to B as fast as possible. I want to go from A to B using all the letters of the alphabet. That's what he said. I said, that's cool. And I think that's a great teacher also. We don't want to get there as fast as possible. We want to be able to use and create the experiences. So when I think of A to B and how I try to teach creativity at the Darden Business School at UVA, you know, I teach divergent thinking. Okay, we're going to go out and think differently and walk in other people's shoes and empathy and all that. And then I also teach convergent thinking and bringing it back down to reality. That's too linear. That's very left brain. I love the scientist who said, Karl Popper, who said, it's all about the interplay, the dance. Creativity is all about the dance between divergent, going out, and then bringing it back down. And I call this emergent thinking. That's what I try to create in folks. I try to have ideas just percolate out, going from A to B using all the letters. And as Emily said, on my tombstone, what I want is that he was curious first, critical second. Because you know what? It makes all the difference in the world. And if any of you have been judged by Myers-Briggs, and I've been put in the ENTJ box, so I'm a strong TJ judger, I have to think of that constantly. Because I want to tell the world what's wrong with it or what's wrong with an idea just like that. Rather than go, what's right about that? Because if we spend our time judging too much and not being curious, we fall in the trap of the president of Warner Brothers, who in 1927 said, who the hell wants to hear actors talk? But worse yet, Decca Records in 1962, a week before the Beatles went on the Ed Sullivan Show, said groups with guitars are on the way out. Where is Decca Records today? I think the 13 publishing houses that turned down J.K. Rowling's manuscript for Harry Potter should have to put, I rejected J.K. Rowling's manuscript, and put it on their LinkedIn account. I mean, I hate to tell you, but this is what happens as adults. The box is no longer our friend. What did we design? We designed cubicles. You know, and we get these cubicles, or we design departments. And as Gillian Tett from the Financial Times said so well in her book, well, and also we then get people that say, help, I need to think outside of the box. The box is your friend. It's not a box. But we try to think outside, and Gillian Tett says we become blind to our own blindness when we live and work in a box, or a cubicle, or a silo, or a department. So I want to show you what I think are blind spots.
Emma. Huh? Emma. 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 Emma.
Do you get it? That's a blind spot, okay? You understand where I'm coming from. 2013, Jamie goes on Shark Tank. He wants to go and sell the sharks the Doorbot. And he says, this is going to tell you when people come to your front door. And the shark said, why do we need that? And they turned him down. 2 months ago, come on, clicker. Amazon bought Jamie's Doorbot, which he renamed Ring, for $1.2 billion. What were the blind spots? What is new now in the last 4 years that Amazon saw? packages delivery to the door, and porch pirates. This is perfect for Amazon. And so my point is, I'm going to try to teach you how to be curious. If you are curious, you don't see the blind spots. I mean, you see the blind, they're not blind, you actually get to see them. Because you don't see blind spots, you hear them. You hear them in other people's language, like, that'll never work. Or yes, but. Or it's not in the budget, which is a favorite one I love to hear. You've heard that before, right? But I'll show you how to get around it's not in the budget. So I want to tell you of a brainstorm, because what I do for a living is I run brainstorms. In 1994, Pepsi came to me and said, we need a new drink. They had just created this drink called Crystal Pepsi with the tagline, you've never seen a taste like this. You have never seen a taste like that because it only lasted on the market for 3 months. It was clear. Pepsi thought, they said, America wants a clear drink. I told them it's called water. They said they would never sell water. Okay, Coke said the same thing to me. And they wanted to create a clear drink, so they just removed the coloring. It was Crystal Pepsi, and you hated it. So they kept it alive until Invisible Cola. Homer Simpson did the Invisible Cola thing. Did a whole episode on it. But the real killer, Jon Stewart, called it Crystal Meth Pepsi. So they called up and they said they really needed some help. And I said, okay, why don't we sell water and just give it an Italian name? And they go, we're never going to sell water. I go, okay. So I used, advance a slide, please, because it's not. There. I used my favorite technique from the Tao Te Ching. All behavior consists of opposites. Learn to see things backwards, inside out, and upside down. So if you think about an opposite, so it said clear, let's go darker. Why don't we sell a coffee drink? Because who was getting started in 1994? Starbucks. So I said, why don't we go and create a coffee drink with Starbucks and give it an Italian name? And they go, I don't know, it's really good. It's called Frappuccino. You didn't know that Pepsi made Frappuccino, do you? Because I wasn't allowed to tell the story until 5 years ago. It's the one that we sell in the bottle that you buy in the store. And that day, Pepsi now acknowledges it. So Pepsi makes it for Starbucks. That day created an industry which is worth $2 billion. That's off of Pepsi's homepage. They say that day that we brought those two, and they came together. So the interesting thing is Walmart turned it down. Walmart purchasing agent said, Bubba doesn't want a coffee drink. So I called them back up and said, Mrs. Bubba does. The #1 drink sold in America to women today is Frappuccino. So how do you see blind spots? Again, I've mentioned, you hear them. So you hear them when someone says it'll never work. Never doesn't mean never. To me, when someone says never, that's where a blind spot to fill. That's where there's less competition. Oh, and also you get all these slides. So you're going to be able to download them all. Okay, I'm totally open source. There's less cost of entry. So that's what, when you hear the never, that's your opportunity to go and see that blind spot. Yes, but is my favorite one, though. Because yes, but, the favorite one, yes, but it's not in the budget. And I know how many hear that on a daily basis. So here is how you fight it. You get the person that says that, or the team that says that, to watch Blazing Saddles. This part of Blazing Saddles. It's the bad guys coming through the desert to go and wipe out the good guys in Rock Ridge, but the good guys set up a toll booth that required them to go through one at a time.
The Petamine Thruway? Now what'll that asshole think of next? Has anybody got a dime? Somebody's got to go back and get a shitload of dimes.
So my point with that is, how would kids get through that toll booth? They'd go around it. They'd go under it, over it. One kid told me, I would tell the toll taker my dad's paying for everyone, but he's at the end of the line. Okay? So, when somebody tells you it's not in the budget, go around it, go under it, jump over it, shoot it down, put a dime on a string, go in and out. So I've got a little blind spot quiz for you. I borrowed this from a 5th grade arithmetic book. And I want you to count squares. You might have seen this before, but since today is, what's today's date? April 15th, 2018. The answer is different today. That's what Einstein always said, the answer is different every year. So here's your quiz. How many squares are there? So I'm going to put on a little music, and when the music is over, I want you to write down your answer. The blue is not a square. That's a rectangle. Okay, how many squares are there? 26, 31, 28, 30, 32, good, okay. So, in the math book from 5th grade, that I still have a copy of, the right answer in the back is very old math book, is 16. Yeah, I learned that you get the same exercise in 10th grade when you're learning factorial, and the right, 4 squared plus 3 squared plus 2 squared plus 1 squared, and the right answer is 30. So I thought the right answer was 30. And I teach 2nd through 5th grade in a program called Waggy Labs, where we're teaching kids in Ghana and Nigeria and Navajo Nation to become kidpreneurs. And I teach through Skype and other ways. And one kid challenged me 2 years ago, and she was 9. So I thought the answer was 30. So any of you that thought it was like 30, go, yeah, good job. Come on, click it. She said, Mr. Thompson, 30 is only correct on paper, but you are using, we're using a laptop to watch you here in Ghana, in Accra, Ghana, and everything is digitized, and all the lines on the computer are digitized, and pixels are square, Mr. Thompson. I said, really? How do I see a pixel? And she said, magnify your screen by 400%, turn the line on an angle. She's 9 in Accra, Ghana. And then another kid said, what kind of laptop do you have? And I go, I've got a MacBook Air. And he goes, well, I think you got 3D software bundled on your. And then another kid said, so Mr. Thompson, how many squares are there? And I said, I have a friend at NASA that works on the Mars Curiosity rover who's a mathematician. I'm going to email him. I emailed him. He sent me the whole formula of this. The kids have it framed on their wall. That's learning, right? But it's a different answer this year. It used to be 16, then it was 30, now it's in the millions. And this is what Einstein always said. Einstein said, always look for second right answers. That's what you went through in your brain as you're going 16, 21, 26, 30. look at it from a different perspective. That's what the kids did. They went from pixels and looked for a new answer every year. So where do your ideas come from? Here is the top 10. Cutting grass, listening to a sermon, waking up middle of the night, exercise and leisure reading, during a boring meetings, the only time I work. Falling asleep, waking up, sitting on the toilet. Toilet used to be number 1. It dropped as more women entered the survey. So driving, taking a bath or shower. Nobody said brainstorming. And the challenge is we never really learned how to brainstorm. Brainstorming actually has two guidelines. That's it. Then the first guideline is yes and. When you hear an idea, you think like you're in improvisational theater. You play off of that idea. You go and you build. And you don't say a but until after you got a whole bunch of ideas. And then once you got all your ideas, you look at them and you say, what's right about it? You don't start off and go, well, that would never work. You go, well, what's right about that? And then you look for the rightness. The reason why I want you to understand yes and what's right about it is I think life is a brainstorm. Too many of my MBA students think that's what success in life is. I try to tell them that that's what it is. You're going to have some zigs and some zags, and every once in a while, you're going to have a special opportunity when you got to brainstorm. And I want to tell you about my first brainstorm. Well, and first, the brainstorm is I call it creative collision. It's when events, experiences, and emotions just... My first one was when I was 9. There I am. So now you know I had blonde hair. They wanted to hold me back in 2nd grade because I'm severely dyslexic, but my teachers decided not to hold me back because she said I smile all the time and she just couldn't do it. So, but I had to figure out how to get through school because I got a D on every written report. And then I calculated in my brain. I got an A on everything I drew. So if I illustrated every report, that gave me a C, which got me through school, which was a great strategy, which did not work in college. There is my first year of college, University of Delaware, 1966. Look at those grades. So my advisor called me on in and said, Chick. Actually, he didn't call me Chick, he called me Mr. Thompson, which bugged me. And he said, you're just not cut out for college. So I'd recommend dropping out, getting a job, and he even put in he said, look, don't worry, your parents don't have a college education. But it was even worse, my parents don't have a high school education. I was going to be the first. And I said, okay. I dropped out. And I got a job in an assembly line. Pepperidge Farm Bread, Downingtown, Pennsylvania. We made raisin bread. And people stepped on the raisins on the first shift. I scraped the raisins, the squashed raisins, off of the floor on the second shift for 2.5 years, trying to figure out what to do in my life. Because I was told I had a learning disability or something. And I thought I was going to be saved. I got drafted in 1969. I won the lottery to go to Vietnam based on birth month. I went for the physical, all excited. I think I can do something good. And I failed the medical physical because I have Crohn's disease. And I go, They didn't call it Crohn's back then, they called it IBS. So they said they didn't want me, and I'll never forget, I'm driving back to my apartment and I'm going, Army doesn't want me, college doesn't want me. My parents are fine, unconditional love, they're happy. And I said, what am I gonna do? So I went and played some tennis, and on a tennis court, this is University of Delaware tennis courts, And since I worked evenings, so I could play tennis during the day. And on the tennis court, these 3 guys one afternoon needed a 4th. You can't really play tennis with 3. It's not like golf. So they needed a 4th, and none of the other young people wanted to play. And I go, I'll play. I meet my partner, his name's Bill, Ralph, Ed. And I'm that kid. You know kids ask 65 questions per day, right? You know, and they all start with, why? So I'm going, why are you playing on Wednesday after, why aren't you at work? You know, those kind of stupid questions. Well, they said, we just quit our job. Where'd you work? DuPont. Everybody in Delaware works for DuPont. So, or wants to work for DuPont. And I said, so why'd you quit? And they go, well, we came up with this idea, but the people at DuPont didn't agree with it, so we decided to do it on our own, and we're starting in Bill's house. I go, cool. What's the idea? And they go, oh, you wouldn't understand. We're chemical engineers. I go, I had a course in chemistry. Try me. They said, well, it's polytetrafluoroethylene. I go, yeah, it's Teflon. Oh, so tell me about it. And they go, well, we can control the porosity of Teflon. And I said, why do you want to do that? And they go, we want air to pass through. Why do you want to do that? We want it to be breathable. Why do you want to do that? Because we might want to make athletic clothes out of it. So we got along well, and I played with them 3-4 weeks going, and they were looking to hire somebody. Bill's last name is Gore. Gore-Tex. He hired me. He never asked to see my college transcript, fortunately. I said, Bill, why'd you hire me? He said, because you don't stop asking questions. You just keep asking questions, but they're good questions. And we need to figure out what to do with this stuff. And I said, so, okay, what's my job? He said, your job is to brainstorm. That's your job. Go and figure out what can you do with Gore-Tex. And I go, okay. And every idea that we came up with for the first couple of weeks bombed totally. Then I'm in the hospital having my first intestinal surgery. And, I'm doing okay. But the patient next to me had a broken back, and he was getting bed sores. And I asked the nurse, why is he getting bed sores? And she says, well, because it's really hot. The mattress has plastic on it. And why does it have plastic on it? Well, because we don't want to contaminate the mattress. Well, why? People always look at me, why are you doing it? Why are you asking? And I said, I'm just trying to figure it out. And I said, how can we solve that? And she said, well, if you get a material that's breathable. I said, I got this product. Could I just go and get some and put it under the patient? She said, well, okay. So I put it under 3 patients, and they all slipped out of bed that night. Boom, right on the floor. It's not good if you got a catheter in you. Catheter breaks, urine on the floor, because it doesn't absorb. It was a nightmare. So I go, what am I going to tell Bill Gore? And I said, I could come up with another idea. So I said, who would want the slipperiest bed going? See the opposite? Remember the opposite? A burn patient. That was our first product. And I get emotional every time I think of our wounded warriors at Brooke Army Hospital lying on the Gore-Tex hospital bedsheet. And they've been doing that for 40 years. So that's, thank you. Thanks. That's for our wounded warriors. So you got to come up with other answers too. So then I created a face mask for orthopedic surgery for total hip replacement, and we now have 1,000 medical products made out of Gore-Tex. But they still tell the story about the bed sheet that everybody slipped out of bed on. So I kept, Bill Gore helped me get my undergraduate degree. He kept loving the fact I kept drawing cartoons. And I met another person on a tennis court who told me his father wanted to create, had a a life-saving technique, but he needed some cartoons for. And so I drew the first Heimlich maneuver poster. And it was really fascinating working with Dr. Heimlich. He just passed away last year. And I took that drawing and all the success of that poster, which is in restaurants around the world, and I decided to apply where I've always wanted to work, Walt Disney. And I got a job. They never asked for my undergraduate degrees or any of that stuff. They just liked my cartoons and what I was doing with Gore. But here's the thing. I got put in my first brainstorm. The facilitator was Ray Bradbury, Fahrenheit 451. I had never read the book, but I thought he was famous or something. And we were brainstorming what kind of technology to distribute health education at a new thing we were building called EPCOT. EPCOT stands for Experimental Prototype Community of Tomorrow. And someone said, hey, well, first off, I had to sit in the back. I was told I wasn't allowed to participate. We sat by seniority. Okay, this not like a brainstorm I'm used to. And we started going, what kind of technology should we use to distribute our health education material? And someone said, have you heard of this cool new thing called Betamax? Remember Betamax? And someone in the front row stood up and said, our cartoons will never go on videotape as long as I'm president of Walt Disney. Because he saw what could be wrong with going to videotape, right? You know, there could be copyright infringement, various things. But he never thought what could go right. And every idea my team of Imagineers came up with got shot down. And after 3 months, I go, I am out of here. Mentally, I was out of here, but I had to figure out what to do. So I decided I'm going to start my own cartoon company. And I'm just going to deal with very sensitive health topics. So I researched and I realized that the #1 sensitive health topic of that day in 1976 was sexually transmitted diseases. I decided to teach the world how to put on a condom. So this was my first animation on my own. Well, also I said, what would Mickey never do? You know, I played that game. Mickey would never use videotape, so I'm going to use videotape. I would never do sexually transmitted diseases because Goofy and syphilis don't go together. And I would never do it as a nonprofit and give the videos, just sell them at cost. So here is my first animation. This is just my first pencil sketch. It was called Peter Rises Again. I had to leave Disney. People started talking about it, and that's just I did it in full color, full animation, and the full thing, and it hit every news media. It went around the world, and I left and started my own cartoon company, and my next animated film was called Herpy the New VD Around Town. I modeled it after Herbie the Love Bug, because Mickey was my dartboard. And then I met in Charlottesville, Virginia. I moved to Charlottesville, Virginia, and my next door neighbor, I was living in the basement of a house there, and my next door neighbor was a lesbian author named Rita Mae Brown. She invited me over to her home one day at her swimming pool, and her partner was Martina Navratilova. And they told me that, they said, we have no educational programs in homosexuality. Could you do something for us? So that was my second movie. Since Martina was a tennis player and I was a tennis player, we took tennis balls and pixelated them. That's just a rough sketch. It was called Rolling with Love. It was 2 gay tennis balls that lived in a tennis ball can. And then after that, they were telling me about a disease that had no name. And so we did the first educational program on AIDS. And in 1984, we got written up in the Wall Street Journal as how could this little cartoon company in Charlottesville, Virginia be selling more health education programs than anybody? And I sold my company to Encyclopedia Britannica. And tried to decide, gotta check my time, tried to decide what to do after that. And I started going around giving talks to the school. And I gave a little talk at St. Anne's Belfield, which is a private school in Charlottesville, and the kid comes up to me and he says, Mr. Thompson, that was fun. I think my dad would like to hear that. And I go, cool, have your dad call me. And A secretary calls me the next day and she says, Mr. Thompson, next week is Secretary's Day and we need a speaker. And I said, great, okay, I'll be glad to come. And she said, oh, thank you so much, our clown just canceled. I said, I'm replacing a clown? She says, yeah, that's what we always do for our secretaries. So I went and gave a talk of empowerment and everything that I'm teaching right here. And the secretaries then told their bosses, and the company was called General Electric, and I got a 4-year teaching contract. So it all, I don't know how things like this work. I guess the thing that I want to say, I don't feel I've been lucky. I don't feel I've been lucky at all. I think it all comes from, if the clicker, whoops, come on. What I call curiosity. But I put a word in front of curiosity called strategic curiosity. Ask why appropriately. Ask why 5 times to get to your root cause. And my favorite technique to ask, some things to do, is look through magazines and art books backwards to promote your curiosity. Read things, look at things that are going to talk to you about the future. Did you know that 14 years before the Titanic sank, there was a book called The Wreck of the Titan about the largest ship hitting an iceberg? But that's not this is the tough one for me to show. In 2001, my client was Flexon Frames. I was helping them create stuff for they made the iframes that you could sit on. I want to show you, I'm not going to show you the video, I want to show you a sketch of the video of their campaign at the end of August 2001 to show you flexibility. Yeah, wow. 9/11 Commission report, lack of imagination. Ad agencies thought of that. Intel didn't. That's why we need curiosity. So when you see a picture from General Motors that says this is the car in 5 years, it's not going to have a steering wheel, I want you to say, who and what can now drive? Kids can drive. Pizza can drive. Blind can drive. And then when you have no steering wheel, how is that going to change education? What difference is that going to make? That's how you use strategic curiosity. So one other thing to do to try to remember what we've been talking about is, how many have a watch on? In honor of Mickey, for Mickey Mouse, I want you to move your watch to your other arm. That was a little thing we used to do at Disney. And if you don't have a watch on, you go, thank God I don't have a watch. You got to move your cell phone to your other side. I want you to, today, which will spark your learning, is to break your patterns. Because you're going to go and look at your wrong arm to tell the time now. And you're going to say, I am an idiot. Every time you look at your wrong arm today, I want you to put a smile on your face and say, I'm strategically curious. So in closing, I got a seat. Okay. 2 weeks, big day for me. 70, yes, 70. 65 was a big day because I got Medicare. But in 2 weeks, 70. So, several years ago, I tried to decide, what do I want to do in retirement? That's not my favorite question. What would I never do in retirement is the question. I would never go and teach in an elementary school because my doctor told me I now have 3 autoimmune diseases, and I talked to him about this. He said, no, you couldn't survive because you'd be sick. I said, I'll wear a face mask. They could call me Bubble Boy or something. But then I go, wait a minute, how could I do it? Could I teach through Skype? If I could teach through Skype, where could I go? I had just seen a movie called The Good Lie, about Sudanese war child. I've always been intrigued by Navajo Nation. And the Chicago, there was the McDonald's shooting in Chicago was on the news as I was thinking about all this. And I'm going, how can I go teach in Chicago, Navajo Nation, and in Africa? So I created what's called Waggy Labs. Waggy is the dog I never had because of my allergies and all that stuff, so Waggy's the dog. And Waggy stands for what a great idea. And we're all about, we're teaching kids to be kidpreneurs. We're not about lemonade, we're about community aid, ideas for good. I'm running out of time, so it's not a course, it's a journey. I loved how you all talk about it as a journey. It's not a curriculum, it's a playbook, it's not competition, it's collaboration. So, come on, clicker. We call it the Kidpreneurship, because ship is in entrepreneurship. And we take the kids on a voyage. You see, find your passion, be a detective and all that. My partner is Sandy Damashek. She came up to me, she heard about what we were doing, and she said, I want to be your partner. I'm just retiring from Sesame Street. I've written all the 30 children's books for them. And I said, hey, look, we're a nonprofit and nobody gets paid. She said, perfect. So, she's my partner. And there we are at Accra, Ghana. Those are the pictures I have on my desk. Because see, I don't have children. Ideas have been my kids my whole life. And I want grandkids. So how do you get grandkids? There we are, Adama, Nigeria. If you know that part of Nigeria, that's Boko Haram territory. Those kids have never been in a classroom before in their life. And so we started a school, gave them shirts, we teach them Waggy Labs, and the kids, they call me Daddy. And their ideas are my grandkids. How does that happen? Strategic curiosity. So, and the star of A Good Lie, Emmanuel Jal, he heard about what we're doing. He came and helped us kick it off. So he's now our global ambassador. But what he wants us to do is put a Waggy Labs in a Syrian refugee camp. So we're going there. So we're launching in Navajo Nation in a couple of weeks. And we're launching in Chicago. The chief of police, Eddie Johnson, just called up and says, hey, look, we want you to launch Waggy Labs in our inner city. So we're going to create pen pals between Navajo Nation and Chicago. And we're going to have fun. We call it Empathy in a Box. And we're sending a box from one to the other with the journal of the kids' challenges and pictures and all of that. We're just having a blast. So the reason why I throw all this out is because also tell you, you got to have a shark tank, right? So we have a guppy tank. The first project we funded was a hand washing station in a remote part of Ghana where they have no running water. They got a bucket and they invented, what they think they invented is soap on a rope. We funded it, soap on a rope. So the reason why I tell you all this is my closing remarks to you are, what's your never? What are the things, what are your blind spots? So I'm going to have a workshop on that after this, but for those of you that can't attend that, your challenge is write down 5 things, and this is when you get home, write down 5 things you would never ever do to achieve your dreams. And you can include like, I would never go on vacation here, or I would never eat that food. I don't care. Write down 5 things, put them on your refrigerator door, and as you walk by them, challenge it and say, what if I did that? So in closing, I always like to close with Plato. I never read Plato. I heard this on NPR. But Plato said, human beings strive to achieve immortality, and there's 3 ways to achieve immortality. One way is by having children. Second way is by planting trees. And the third way is by creating ideas and help make them happen. Go forth, achieve immortality. Thank you.